This Thrive Loud episode is brought to you by Hinge Consulting. Success on Amazon hinges on well-executed strategies. Contact Hinge Consulting to learn about total Amazon channel management and to see if your business has what it takes to grow over 300% over the next 12 months. That's Hinge Consulting at hingeconsulting.co.
Today on Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
When I was 20 years old, I started a tech company. And it's actually, looking back, rather crazy because I'd never taken a business course and really wasn't that great of a technology guy. I've always been sort of a tech geek. But I said, if I can improvise jazz and just figure stuff out as you go, maybe I could do the same in business.
Now I'm getting really excited. Okay, this is the part where I'm going to get loud.
Holy crap, here we go.
I like telling stories.
I learn best through experiences.
Everything I do is because of everything I did.
Talk about having maximum impact while having a ton of fun.
When you can net through that, what you do leave behind for your listener will have more impact.
Wow, bring it on.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, I bring you venture capitalist, tech entrepreneur, a New York Times bestselling author, and keynote speaker on a mission to drive creativity, innovation, and reinvention. He has a pretty amazing company called the Institute of Applied Creativity and has a relatively new book out called Hacking Innovation. From Detroit, Michigan, Thrive Loud listeners, an inspiring individual who is a driving force onto his own, Josh LInkner. Josh, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Lou. Thanks for having me, and just delighted to be here and share some ideas.
So Josh and I only met recently, but many of you listening have certainly heard him. He is one of the most active keynote and leadership speakers you'll ever hear. He is inspiring and can certainly hold a room, but more notably can launch you forward. And what's really impressive, speaking of launching forward, is your career in itself, because we learned some overlapping things that you and I had in our careers, which is pretty funny. If you could share with the Thrive Loud listeners, Josh, a little bit about your journey, how you went on the path that you're on right now, and what it all, how it's all turning out, because you're a busy man and you are all over the place.
Well, it's very, very kind of you to say. Thank you. My story in a nutshell. So I was born in the city of Detroit. And so I didn't come from a real fancy background or anything. I put myself through college playing jazz gigs. I'm a jazz guitarist, and I'm very passionate about the art form.
Nice.
But what happened was when I was 20 years old, I started a tech company. And it's actually, looking back, rather crazy because I'd never taken a business course and really wasn't that great of a technology guy. I've always been sort of a tech geek. But I said, if I can improvise jazz and just figure stuff out as you go, maybe I could do the same in business. So I started this company that was 27 years ago. And over the next 27 years, started, built, and sold 5 others. So I've had the chance to, just from an idea, a blank piece of paper, build and grow sort of these against the odds, turn over in old industry upside down kind of companies. And by the way, we've had lots of setbacks and challenges and such, but the outcomes were good. The 5 companies sold for over $200 million on a combined basis, raised hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital for myself and others. I've been involved in, I've invested personally in about 110 startups. So, it's been a really interesting run. And the common denominator really has been this idea of harnessing innovation, deploying creativity. Even people like me who are not the smartest, certainly, and don't have the best background, able to achieve pretty cool things by tapping into this natural resource that all of us have of creativity. And just rounding that out, that's really why I wrote the 3 books on this exact topic, on how we can leverage creativity to even the playing field. So that becomes the great equalizer, really, no matter who you are or what size organization you're with. If you can truly harness the innovation and creativity within, you can go on to do incredible things. And that's what I'm so lucky to share those ideas with around the world.
So maybe you could share with the listeners some of the companies and the businesses that you've been involved with, just so they get a perspective of some of the successes, understanding there have been failures along the way, just some of the things that you're proud of in that geeky tech entrepreneur way that you've been involved.
Well, thanks. So the largest company that I built, I started in 1999 called ePrize. And we designed, built, and ran digital promotions. We were kind of like half ad agency and half software company. And at the time, everyone was focused on internet advertising. So I could have done that. I could have been the 700th mover in internet advertising. But instead, I said, promotions is a big part of the marketing mix. Why not form the first internet promotions company? And that's exactly what we did. And again, had a lot of hardships along the way, but over time scaled that to about $100 million in revenue and about 500 people in offices around the world, working with 74 of the top 100 brands. But this was like the scrappy, creative, it wasn't all glamour. It was, we kind of hustled it out and were able to create a good outcome. The other one that's kind of fun is in 2010, my partners and I had this crazy idea. We said, what if we launched a venture capital fund in our hometown of Detroit? And we said, maybe we'll make some money, but more importantly, maybe we can make a difference. And so we decided to invest in tech companies, not manufacturing firms, as a mechanism for social change, to try to reestablish Detroit as a beacon of opportunity. We wanted to diversify our economy and create jobs and urban density and hope. Anyway, people thought we were totally crazy. They're like, you can't do this in Detroit. Go to New York, go to Silicon Valley. So that fired us up that much more. So we ended up raising about a $60 million fund. More than half of it was our own money, and started investing in tech companies and providing not only money, but coaching and support and mentorship. And interestingly enough, when we launched the fund in 2010, there was not one tech startup in downtown Detroit, not a single one. We ended up taking over this old vacant building in downtown Detroit. We invested millions of dollars, tricked it out to make it kind of like the epicenter of technology in Detroit. Anyway, today, within 1 square block of our building, there are 70 tech companies. There's over 1,000 sort of tech creative workers helping to grow these companies right in downtown Detroit. So the reason I bring all this up is, again, definitely not the smartest, not the best background, but using creativity and innovation, going against the grain, defying traditions has always yielded terrific results for me.
I'll say this, Josh, because I remembered this. I used to work on Wall Street, and in 2010, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. It was at the front page, and the real estate market had obviously taken its hit, and everything had changed. We were in that, against Wall Street movement, and obviously real estate was the hardest hit. And there was a picture of you could buy a home in downtown Detroit for $6,000. And I remembered it made the front page of the thing. And I'm like, wow, guys, this is a smart investment. You can go grab something in downtown Detroit and go buy this. But of course, no one was doing anything. And for those that did take the risk, and now 7-8 years later, look, everything has to hit a bottom and come back up. And to your point about a cultural change, because it is true that has been such an industrial town for so long that innovation is coming there. I know that what are some of the entrepreneurial programs that they have that start off with people who've just graduated college and they haven't gone to a job? I'm blanking on the name of it.
Venture for America. Venture
for America. And I know they all head out into Detroit, and it's spectacular. And I'm sure you're very much involved in that growth as well. I'm guessing here.
Yeah, funny enough, we worked with Andrew Yang, the founder of Venture for America, and actually helped bring it to Detroit. So we were the first sort of guinea pigs, and that program has gone terrifically well. And it's funny, a lot of people count Detroit out, but I would say we are on a tear right now. There's still a long way to go, but I really believe that this 5-year stretch will be studied for decades to come as one of the greatest turnaround stories in American history. And getting back to the topic at hand, I mean, when you really look at it, 100 years ago, Detroit was the Silicon Valley of our country. And when we were successful, we were in this really entrepreneurial, creative groove. Well, then what happened is we did a 180. We got away from those entrepreneurial roots and became all focused on entitlement and bureaucracy and blame. Anyway, when we got away from creativity, our city crumbled. Today, it's rising from the ashes and amazing things are happening. And I believe it's because we've reconnected to those creative roots. So it's amazing what happens. It's such a fascinating tale of what happens when you embrace these approaches, and frankly, what happens when you don't. And I'm proud to say that our city is now once again doing great things because we've doubled down on our community's approach to innovation.
That's actually a great segue here, because I've heard you speak, and a lot of your message obviously relates to these points about driving creativity, innovation, and reinvention. And you bring up the stories about Detroit. Can you talk a little bit about how some of the messages that you've seen in different lines of business, and how the way that you approach things and how you're getting that leadership message across to different industries in different cities, because you speak in lots of different places and cover a lot of different topics and relate to how that all brings it together. Just some examples so the Thrive Lab listeners can get a little glimpse of Josh.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, I mean, the first thing I'd say is that all of us are creative people. Sometimes you're in a company and they say, oh, that's where the creatives sit. And truth is, we're all the creatives. I mean, and the research is crystal clear that all of us as human beings have enormous creative capacity. Doesn't mean we're all good at everything like art or music or dance, but all of us can solve problems in creative ways. And when you have that fundamental belief, it's actually very liberating. In fact, that we're hardwired as human beings to be creative. That's our natural state. But our jobs and our bosses and our schools, they tend to beat it out of us over time. But when you reconnect to it, no matter the industry or the size of the organization, incredible things happen. We often think of innovation as these giant product breakthroughs, but we can be innovative at all levels of a company on a daily basis. I like to talk about everyday innovation or micro innovations. So I'm talking about the little stuff, how you run your Monday morning meeting or how you interview a new job candidate. So the point is, you don't have to be wearing a lab coat or be the CEO to be innovative. And that's what I really help people do, not only reconnect to this natural state of creativity, but give them some practical tools so that they can harness and deploy this gift. And that's worked wonderfully I've had the privilege really to speak to, hundreds and hundreds of large organizations, as well as many startups and up and coming ones. And the size of the company and the industry matter much less. The thing is, if there's a company that's run by humans, that's a creative company.
Very true. So Josh, here's a good question, because you've started technology companies and you've invested in different ventures and obviously helped to grow a city. And a lot of that takes great people and building a team and seeing a vision and kind of like make it like your own baby. And you have this other business, which you speak and share this message with so many different people. And I speak as well. And it's really interesting because while you're trying to connect and relate to that, sometimes when you do a lot of speaking, you're kind of alone in that sense. Which do you like better? Which do you, the sense of building a business or sharing the message?
Well, gosh, I hate to sound like a politician and not answer your question, but what I really like to do is I like to create things.
Okay.
I like to create things. And so if I'm creating a piece of music, improvising it in the jazz room, that's awesome. Or if I'm building a business myself, that's awesome. Or if I'm helping other people create, if I'm investing in a company and sitting on their board, I feel like I'm doing the same thing. It's maybe just like a different form. And when I speak and share ideas and even help others with their speaking business, I know it sounds weird, but it's kind of like all the same thing. It's just different flavors of creating.
Right.
And for me, if I can help make the world better, if I can make a personal impact on people's lives, I'll tell you, that's the most rewarding thing of all. And real quickly, I've been very lucky to achieve, strong financial success. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a capitalist. That's great. But the most rewarding things that I found in my career wasn't, some $100 million plus transaction. It was when someone came into my office and said, hey, Josh, you probably don't even know my name. I started at your company 2.5 years ago. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I just closed on a home. I'm the first person in my entire family to ever be a homeowner, and thank you for the opportunity. And so my response, of course, was, look, it wasn't me. It was your hard work, and you're the one that earned it. But even knowing that you provided a platform for someone to bring out their best, those are the rewarding moments. And whether, again, I'm doing that today in growing a company of my own or helping others get there, I'm cool with it, either flavor of that.
No, it's great. And I do agree with you. And I actually think that creative process, look, giving the message, even though it might be the similar message over and over again, the message might be swayed into who you're talking to and how you orchestrate it and the order it goes. And it is like conducting a symphony. I know you were taking away from your jazz style days, but that's what you are doing. You're on your toes and you're going with the flow of the beat of the room. And, everyone, obviously there's a different pulse for every time you speak, and there's a different pulse for every company that you work with. So I guess that's hey, that right side of your brain, is that how it works? Yeah. The right side of your brain where the creative stuff comes from sounds like you've been incorporating that into the left side as well.
Well, I definitely try. And I'll tell you, for me, I've never given the same keynote twice. I always adapt it to the audience. And that to me is the difference between jazz and classical music. Classical music is all about alignment and precision and accuracy and playing what someone else created 100 years ago. Where jazz, you're making it up every time as you go. Nothing wrong with classical, by the way. It's a beautiful art form. I'm actually on the board of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. So I'm not really bashing classical, but for me, business and life and certainly the work I do as a keynote speaker is much more like jazz, where you're sharing ideas, you're improvising, you're adapting, you're interacting. And that to me is the thrill. So
Josh, you are what I love to call on the Thrive Loud show, a true thriver. And everyone who has had a career of success and has their ups and downs, a lot of people don't know that when they have their downs, that the people, when they're not on the thriving track, they need to turn to somebody who is the sensei that you turn to get you back on the thriving track?
Well, that's a cool question. I mean, the first thing I'll say too, while I certainly am very grateful for my success, I've had lots of setbacks and challenges. I fail all the time. I've made a bunch of mistakes. And so when you look at someone successful, forget me, like a Steve Jobs or someone, we often think, oh, they were fearless and they never had any ups and downs and they were just magical. And then, so for us normal people, if we stumble, we think, we could never be successful. And again, the truth is that all successful people have their share of ups and downs. One of the biggest factors that I've seen that really gets people through it is grit. It's that hustle and tenacity and resilience and willing to bounce back from those adversities. So just for everyone listening, if your life isn't perfect, doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. Quite the opposite. I don't know a perfect person that's ever had any success. But in terms of your question, for me, who I turn to, part of it as I turn to my wife, I'm so grateful. I have the most amazing, supportive, incredible wife, Tia, who's just a huge source of inspiration. But I also turn a lot to books. It's funny, you can have a conversation with any author, living or dead, just by reading their book and sort of getting inside their mind. So even on a non-physical basis, that's been a big one. Over the years, I had a wonderful mentor, a guy named Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's a big investor in Detroit, and he's the chairman and owner of Quicken Loans. And he was someone that I became very close with. He was on my board, and he was actually my partner as we started the Detroit Venture Partners. And again, I learned a ton from him. So not so much even turning to when you're having a tough moment, but just even analyzing opportunities and figuring out where to go from there. It's wonderful to have teachers in your life.
No, it's awesome. I would say the only guy Dan Gilbert really ever worked for might have been LeBron, but that was only like for a season or so. So, All right. So here's a question just to get us to that next level. We're recording this right at the beginning of 2018. And obviously you seem to be one of those people that has a game plan, and you know that Detroit has a big plan for the next 5 years. What is the big plan for you for this year, you personally, for Josh, the big goals that you're trying to achieve for yourself, and maybe how that relates to some of the goals of the projects you're working on for Detroit in the immediate year? Obviously, I know you've got bigger pictures where things are going.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, like I'm sure you do and many listeners here today, I'm a big fan of setting goals. There's the old saying, you'll never hit a target you can't see. And for me, the goal helps you reverse engineer what to do to get there. I always make the analogy that if you had a 1,000-piece puzzle to build and you dumped all the pieces on the table and threw the box cover away, it'd be really tricky to figure out where to put the pieces. But that box cover becomes your roadmap, and then you can start to figure out where do the pieces go. And I think having annual goals is the same thing. It helps you figure out where the pieces need to fall. In my case, I break it down into career goals and family goals and health and fitness goals. And this year, my big ones, I've got really 3 businesses. My speaking and thought leadership business. I am the co-founder and chairman of something called Platypus Labs, where we're helping organizations inject innovation. We have sort of an innovation enablement program. We call it innovation as a service, like their software as a service, where we're helping mainly bigger companies fully harness innovation in their organizations. And then I have this fun program called 3 Ring Circus, which allows emerging and even experienced keynote speakers to take advantage of what we've built over the years and built some systems around it to help them scale their business. So those are my 3 big business focuses. I'm very involved in philanthropy. I'm very involved in Detroit. But I'll share one thing that I actually borrowed from someone else, full disclosure, but I think it's really cool. So let's say you start your year. Mm-hmm. Let's say you have 50 goals. Well, it's really hard to get 50 goals done. Where do you focus? There's that old saying that if you chase 2 rabbits, both will escape.
Right.
And this was something that I learned that helped me solve it. Someone said, pick a word of the year.
Yeah.
One word. That's like your theme of the year. And really think, and then break it down and maybe make each quarter a subset of that theme and each month a subset of the quarter. But really have this pervasive one singular concept that is, if you were to look back in time 20 years from now, you'd say, oh, that was my year of blank. And so it really struck me. I'm like, wow, a word of the year. So I started thinking about it. It took actually a couple months, and I went back and forth between performance, and I used the word elevate. I thought that was a cool word, and innovate, of course. But for me personally, I ended up on the word health. And interestingly, I'm actually not in failing health. I'm not in perfect health, but I figured, why wait until you have a disease to consider health seriously? So this is, for me personally, my year of health. That's my word of the year. And I've already started learning and reading and breaking down nutrition and all kinds of stuff. And not so much in a cheesy New Year's resolution kind of way that you break 2 weeks into the year, but that's my persistent theme for the year. And next year, I'm going to choose a different word. So if any listeners thinking, gosh, I've got so many goals, so much to accomplish, what if I can't have the persistence to accomplish them all? Pick one word, pick one theme, and really go deep and make that your big theme for the year, I'm optimistic in my case, but I think that the listeners will also enjoy tremendous success.
I'm just going to share that not too long ago, a couple episodes before you, Jamie Crosby had mentioned the exact same thing. She picked authenticity for the year, and it was a great idea. It's a great pick that word. She actually got a bracelet that now it sits on her wrist so that she could wear it all year round, and she'll do the same thing next year for the word of the year. So great job. I love that idea, and it's powerful, and it definitely can keep you on track, because you're right. If you have too many goals out there, you're right, you won't catch them, or you only catch a little bit of the ones that you really wanted to focus on. Great job. I love that.
Yeah, I love it too. Again, it wasn't my idea, but I mean, think about all the creative iterations. Like, let's say you chose a word like compassion. Well, maybe once a month you host a dinner and you invite people to have a discussion around compassion. Maybe you get involved in a charity thing. Maybe you create compassion cards and share them with your colleagues. I mean, the point is that whatever your word is, it gives you a whole platform of creativity that you can go deep and play around with this theme throughout your year. And I think, 20 years in a row of going deep into one concept, man, you'll be really interestingly well-rounded and I think achieve a lot by pursuing that approach.
No, I definitely like it. So let's give me a couple of the plugs here before we get to our wrap up fun questions. All the places that people can find Josh Linkner, the best ways to get to you, and then I've got some fun ones that I've set up for you, a little bit different than I normally do. So share with you all the links so people know where to find you.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. And again, I have nothing to sell per se, but if I can be of help to anyone, it's my pleasure. My website is just my name, joshlinkner.com. So that's JOSHLINKNER.com. And I guess if someone really wanted to, I have all my books there. You can buy a signed book if you'd like. Our new innovation consulting business is called Platypus Labs. So that's just platypuslabs.com. And if you are a keynote speaker or you're interested in being a professional keynote speaker and we could be helpful to you, that is just a fun little play. The website is 3ringcircus.com with the number 3, the numeral 3. And the idea is that, hey, it's a circus out there. So instead of treating it real serious, we had a little fun and made it a bit tongue in cheek. But the idea of elevating your game on the keynote circuit, check out 3ringcircus.com.
So Josh, here are some of the fun questions. The first one is, with all of the things that you do, and I was trying to figure out when you possibly sleep, I wanted to know what you do for fun, something that is not work related, not related to Detroit and all those wonderful causes. What's the fun thing that is the side of Josh that nobody gets to see?
Well, my biggest passion is jazz. I still play jazz music regularly. I actually play in downtown Detroit at a club called Cliff Bell's several times a year with a bunch of amazing musicians. By the way, the best way to make yourself sound good is hire musicians that are way better than you, which I'm very fortunate to do. But I love music. I mean, music is my outlet. It's my creative passion. It's a platform for expression. And it's funny, like, I'm the worst dancer ever. I can't paint a stick figure if I tried, but music for me is a wonderful outlet. And then the other thing I'll say real quickly is that I have newborn twins. It's funny. I have older kids too. I have an 18 and a 20-year-old, and I'm remarried, gratefully. And my wife and I have 1-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, Avi and Talia. And wow, that'll keep you young. That's a real blessing. So
you legitimately are not sleeping at all. This is good. There's no rest. It's just whatever it is. You with twins that age. Oh my goodness, I feel for you.
Just flat out. In fact, it's funny. I can now formally say that I have 2 in college and 2 in diapers.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the next 2 questions here, which were a little different than my normal bit, but this one I had queued up. I know that you spoke and traveled a ton in 2017. I used to do a tremendous amount of travel back when I was a consultant. This was in the mid-90s, and air travel was a little bit hectic back then, and now it keeps getting worse and worse, or we get treated like cattle, however it is. They don't seem to improve the travel experience. What was your worst travel story of the past year? Something that was worse in the sense that it was almost comical for how funny the issues were or the delays, or did you have one? Or it might not have been just last year, one that's happened in the last couple of years.
I try to repress those, of course, but you're absolutely right. And there are often these crazy things like, your flight is delayed for some ridiculous reason, like the pilot overslept. And then that creates a whole, like the dominoes start to fall. And so then the driver isn't ready for you when you arrive, and the hotel room is goofy and stuff. But my most goofy travel experience, actually, if you have a quick minute, was this. Yeah. So I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky a couple months ago to give a keynote for the wonderful folks at Fruit of the Loom. And they booked me a room. I was coming from the West Coast. So by the time I got there, it was actually 1:30 in the morning. and I'm exhausted. I have an early thing. I just want to go to sleep. So I go into this hotel. They don't have like a Marriott in downtown Bowling Green. It's like a boutique hotel. So I walk in, there's nobody there. So I ring the little bell at the front desk, ring, 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 nobody shows up. Then there's like a little placard that says, if no one answers, call this number. So I call the number and I hear bzz, bzz. So I peek over the desk and someone's mobile phone is ringing. So I'm thinking, all right, there's no one here. So I walk all around the hotel, peek in the office. No, nothing's locked, of course. No one is there, flat out. So I'm thinking, all right, what do? I'm an innovative guy. I better figure this out. So anyway, long story short, I ended up hacking my way into my room, which was a very long story. I had to use a code and I just figured it out. And then I get into the room and then I had to hack the thermostat wasn't working. And then I had to figure out there was like the iron was broken. I had to rewire the iron to get that working. The shower didn't work. But long story short, instead of falling down and crying in my soup, I just kind of improvised and figured it out and ended up getting to my speech and my meeting on time. So I think that the real answer is travel woes is number one, patience. And number two, you got to be creative.
Josh, did that inspire the title for Hacking Innovation? I mean,
it did not. It did not. But it reminded me of it as I was figuring it out. It's really funny too, because I eventually went around the other side of the desk and I found a folder. And inside the folder, I found my name in another folder. But there was a key, but there was no other paperwork and no room number. It said the word Baldwin. So I'm thinking, well, what do I do with that? So then I started thinking, okay, Baldwin. Well, maybe the rooms are named instead of numbered. And since B is the second letter of the alphabet, maybe the second floor, all the rooms are B. So I went up to the second floor and sure enough, all the rooms are B and I found Baldwin. Then I get to my room and the key, I go to put the key in, the key doesn't work naturally. So now what do? Well, it turns out this one had a little keypad. And so I start trying all these random numbers, like the area code of Bowling Green, Kentucky, and the zip code. I figured there had to be some master code. And it turned out I typed in the address, the physical street address of the hotel into the door. And sure enough, I got into my room.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
These are the types of fun things that we have when we're road warriors.
I love it, Josh. Josh, your all-time favorite movie?
Gosh, it's such a hard question. I just saw La La Land, and I love that with all the wonderful jazz music and such. But it may have to be War Games, actually.
Oh, really?
The Matthew Broderick movie back in the day. And for a couple reasons. One,
there goes your hacking.
Yeah, I mean, I was inspired by that. I actually was kind of doing that same thing back in the day, not to the same level, of course, but it inspired me the profound impact that technology can have, the profound impact that problem solving can have. But the other thing that to me was heartening is at the end of the day, even with the most advanced technology, humanity was the bottom line. Humanity saved the day. And so I still think the same thing. I'm a tech geek. I love technology, but I hope that creativity and humanity are the attributes that carry the day for us all.
Would you like to play a game of chess? Josh LInkner, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud. Hopefully you had a little fun.
Truly my pleasure. Thanks again, and congrats on a wonderful show.
You got him. I got it. And to all our Thrive Loud listeners out there, thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.